Hey guys, so good to see you all. So glad to be back. It's been, almost 2 weeks now since the last show that I did. And as I mentioned, it's been a wonderful experience, kind of stepping away from reality, stepping away from the standard everything, and really going deep into a new practice and a new style of meditation. So I wanted to jump on while it was still fresh, just came off this yesterday, and share all about it. So what we did recently was what's called Vipassana meditation, which is the practice that was brought forward by Siddhartha Gautama, the main modality that he shared and gave in his teachings, that he found was the most effective way of reconnecting the mind and the body and reevaluating this state that we get in, where we're just constantly reactionary. So how do you do this? I mean, most spiritual teachings talk about this reactive state of the mind, but how do we have a practical application where we can address this? So that's what this practice is about. So we're going to dive into it. But first, I wanted to introduce and welcome to the show my new brother and friend, Taylor Christopher, who's joining me here. And I'm excited to introduce you to him. I gave him a ride sort of last minute to the retreat center, which was synchronistically, we fell together and we had just an amazing conversation on the way there. And throughout the meditation, of course, there's no communication. So there was certainly a pause to that in that way, but definitely felt that spiritual connection all throughout. And then after the fact, of course, we connected much more and have just grown deeper in our relationship since then. So thank you for joining the show, brother. Thank you for being here. And I'll just pass it over to you for maybe a quick introduction before we dive into the topic.
Yeah, well, first and foremost, I just want to always lead with gratitude and just thank you for your presence. As I say, your presence is the greatest present you can give to anyone, including yourself. Thank you for putting yourself out there. Thank you for following your heart. Thank you for having me on your Telegram channel. You know, I don't spend a lot of time on Telegram, but I look forward to kind of, playing in the Telegram land for a little while. So again, thank you for having me. I'll put my ego to the side and just, I'm here to serve. So thank you.
Appreciate it, my friend. Yeah. So let's just jump into the details around what this experience was about. So to give a quick summary of the sort of, just how it operate. This was a 10-day retreat where you have 2 travel days. So really 12 days dedicated to this process. And then 10 days intensive, where for about 9.5 of those days, it was in complete silence. So that means no communication of any form, including no hand gestures, no eye contact, no smiling, no signaling, none whatsoever, to really try and go and be in this as much as possible. Of course, there was opportunity to discuss with the teachers, but as far as with the fellow meditators, it was strongly encouraged to stay in this complete, what they called noble silence, because what this does is it allows you to have a completely solo experience where you have no other distraction and nothing to face other than yourself and your mind. So along those same lines of eliminating distractions, there's no phones, no reading, no writing, no communication. It really was a simple, very simple way to have a very challenging, I won't lie, it was extremely challenging to go into this space and to have this opportunity where you're basically sitting in meditation anywhere from 6 to 10, sometimes more hours every single day. And each layer was going deeper and deeper and deeper into this very simple yet very profound practice of, as I mentioned, reevaluating the mind-body connection so that we can step out of this completely reactionary, unconscious state of being where we are just reacting to the external stimuli and come back into that conscious way to where I can truly choose to respond and choose to be with what I am facing. recognizing that it's all stemming from within, projecting outwards. So the experience was that in a nutshell. And each and every day we woke up. So the facility was very nice. It was a beautifully simple facility, and they have these facilities all over the world. This one was near Joshua Tree in California. And it's very simple. Everyone has their own room of very simple accommodations. And basically you're spent your time between going to the dining hall where they fed you just 2 meals a day, in your room meditating, or in the meditation hall, where we spend more intensive meditation times, and having, a brief time to walk around campus. But during the course, you're encouraged to stay the entire duration and not leave the confines of where they set the boundaries for this course. Again, this is to encourage this limitation of distraction so that I can focus solely on what is at hand, to truly maximize the efficiency of the time given. Not that time is a solid, consistent thing, but where we point our attention is the most valuable currency in the universe. So if I'm pouring my attention into a dedicated time during this experience, I want to maximize the potential of increasing this growth within myself. And that's what everything within this course is designed to do. So yeah, it was an amazing experience for sure. As I mentioned, quite challenging to go through that, as one could imagine it would be to do so, especially when we're used to consistently following into these distractions of these technological devices and speaking and talking and distracting ourselves with all these different things. But that was it in a nutshell. So I'll just pause there and pass it back to you, Taylor, if you have any other comments just on that portion there.
Yeah, that was beautifully expressed and stated from top to bottom, left to right. It's I like to joke. I mean, it was really one of the most difficult or hardest easy things to do, right? To sit in complete silence, to sit in meditation. It's one thing to meditate at your home for 10 minutes at a time, 30 minutes, maybe an hour here or there, but to have it so, like, you could say rigid at times, that's the divine masculine. The structure of it was, you could say, very strict. And I know that, like, my inner child, at least, up against that kind of strict authority or structure, there was a lot of resistance. And sitting in it for 10 days, it's like, why resist anything? So I believe that any type of resistance is an invitation to go within, to go deeper, to explore the layers on every surface, at every layer, at every level of, why is this resistance coming up in me? And we can obviously deep dive into that, but it was really, we were forced into a situation where we had to face ourselves, right? There literally were no distractions, no phones, no screens, no speaking. And it's like, for me at least, like, I had this like internal dialogue, right? And we joked about having like a soundtrack of your life, like where a song would pop up, and just even like dissolving the attachment to words was a huge, you say task, was a huge like operation to deconstruct the mind entirely, to put down what we are carrying. But if we find ourselves carrying some luggage, or attaching words, or over analyzing a particular situation, or getting into our minds, as I said before, like finding a sweet spot, the space in between where we can not overly judge ourselves, right? We can like give ourselves a little more self-love through compassion, through kindness, through a little more patience, a little more gentleness with self, knowing that it's all a process, right? With any stage of growth, it's 2 steps forward, 1 step back. And even with that statement, like, just pulling back from that, observing the observer from a distance through witness consciousness, transcending duality entirely. It's not right or wrong, good or bad. It's my mind may be thinking this at a particular time. And once I have the heightened sense of conscious awareness to notice it, I can then consciously choose to set down the thought, set down the label, notice it, respect it for what it is. Just as the clouds come and go, just let it pass. This too shall pass. Fall back into the breath. into the body and really maintain that, what Goenka say, the teacher, maintain that level of like equanimity. Another word I like to attach to it is a state of neutrality, really transcending duality, not right or wrong, good or bad, and really from a neutral standpoint of observing what is, what may be processing through the mind as we kind of unwind the misery, as we unwind kind of that rubber band ball of stress and anxiety and the everyday hustle bustle. As we quiet the mind, as we sit in stillness, we realize that silence truly is golden. We realize that so often we allow our brain, which is such a beautiful tool gifted to us by God, we use our brain as our own worst enemy. And this beautiful Vipassana opportunity was exactly that, an opportunity to really fine tune and master our mind and better sync kind of our brain heart coherence and align it all to and through the body. So yeah, that's what's coming to me now. That's what I'm feeling into. And again, our Vipassana wrapped just yesterday. And it feels like a lifetime ago, right? So just the concept of time, like within itself, right? These, 6 to 8, sometimes 10 or more hours of meditation within a 24-hour clip. There were times where 1 minute felt like an hour, like excruciating, whether it be pain in the lower back, pain in the hips. I mean, we were seated in perfect posture as much as we possibly could. So this was not just a like mind excavation. The teacher often called it like a surgical operation of the mind. While it certainly felt like brain surgery, it was very much so a physical workout, like a physical experience, as it should be. And I just have a lot of respect. And going into it, I was almost a little naive, maybe intentionally, just like, let me not research it thoroughly. Let me not find an excuse or a justification to not show up, right? As we mentioned on the forefront, like there were so many just beautiful, what I call God signs and divine synchronicities that, at least for me personally, led me to that particular time and place and space to have the blessing, to have the opportunity to take 10 days off of work, right, in the matrix, and, just completely disconnect, to reconnect to myself, to reconnect to nature, and to really simplify and elevate while simultaneously ground into this human experience. Goes back to balancing the divine masculine, the divine feminine, but on a practical, like physical level, it's literally the brain heart coherence to and through the body. And honestly, like coming from a meditation teacher, a breathwork facilitator myself, like 10 days straight, like that was a whole nother level. I don't know about you, brother. It's as intense as it sounds. Like I say, full circle. It was one of the most difficult or the hardest easy thing to do, to sit, to be still, to be quiet in a vacuum in a 5 and 10 minute clips. Like those are all the easiest things to do. But it was just kind of like turning our realities upside down to simplify this life to such a basic elementary degree that it did make the everyday mundane, it did make the simple difficult until we worked through it.
Yeah, beautifully said. Thank you for that. And it just to go into the practice itself, just to go into what does this look like? How was this taught? And this is something that I'll be able to describe quite quickly because the practice itself was very simple. It was very simple to do and very simple to look at and to go through. But the intention behind why the course is set up in this way, to give the space to do this, to go deeper into it, really allows the full fruition of what this simple practice really brings to us. So to begin, it starts with, so this was, Vipassana is the main modality that Siddhartha Gautama, the Buddha, brought into the space. This is what he sort of channeled into the experience when he sat under the tree and became enlightened. This is what he saw as the root cause of suffering, was this reactionary state of the mind of constantly being tugged back and forth between cravings and aversions, these attachments that lead us completely off of that which is what he termed Dhamma. Dhamma, which is a Pali term. So this is the main language that Buddhism is taught. Dhamma is that which is natural. It is natural law. It's the present moment. It's the truth. So anytime we veer off of Dhamma, anytime we veer off of the truth, anytime we veer off of the present moment, anytime we let the mind take us into the past or into the future, into some form of spiral away from that which is, then we suffer. We invite misery into our experience. So how can I rekindle that connection with Dhamma? How can I rekindle that experience to that which is, so that I'm no longer suffering? So I'm no longer being pulled into every which direction, and I come back into center. And this is essentially what all ascended masters have taught in various ways and various words. But this is just exploring this particular way of moving back into this, but also providing a very tangible practice that needs no evidence, needs no other than your own direct experience. It truly is you, and that's what he said, and that's what is taught. Goenkaji, who's the one who brought this practice to the West, he brought this teaching, preserved it through these generations that it has been preserved, brought this into the Western practice and brought it into where it is today. But Goenka said, you don't need to prove this. It doesn't need to be something where you have to say, you just have to believe this blindly. There's no blind faith needed within this. Because once you try it, you know. Once you experience it, you feel it. There needs to be no justification other than through your own direct experience, which truly we know nothing until we have experienced it directly. We can get theoretical, we can get intellectual all day long, but until we have actually practiced and brought this into this space, then we know nothing. So that's what this practice really encourages, is you taking a very serious, dedicated time to go deeply into this practice. And they encourage you to suspend all other practices that you might have found along the way. Any other modality, any other meditation style that you might have been experiencing, to suspend those and give this practice the fullest fruition, the fullest chance. And then, of course, you can take whatever after the fact and change it however you like after the fact. But for these 10 days, to give it the full experience so that you can really take from it what you will. So the beginnings of how this foundation is set for this practice to sink in is based on these three main principles of Shila, Samadhi, and Panya. So these are also Pali words, and they essentially mean morality, calmness of the mind, and purification of the mind, or wisdom. So each of the steps as we went through was going deeper into this state of purification of the mind, ultimately to get that wisdom and to have that peace within. So to start with, but it's essential that each one is a building block on the other. And that's one distinguishment between this particular practice and many other teachings, is not having this sort of pragmatic approach of building on that foundation, starting with Shila, starting with morality. And this isn't some morality that's taught to say these laws need to be paid this way and you have to practice these things and we have to just tell you that's how it is. No, this is morality of that which we know. We all know the difference between what is right and what is wrong in the sense of harming one another. You know, it's very, very obvious when we harm another being, we are harming ourselves. So this is a morality that we can truly take into effect and not just take for granted or take as some words written by some ancient master or written on some page or told by some authority. This is something that we know inherently. But if we live outside of this state of morality, then we are living outside of Dhamma, that which is. We are living outside of this recognition that we are all connected. So as soon as I introduce harm to another aspect of self, because there is no such thing as separation. So if I start to harm another aspect of self, another aspect of me, then I am stepping outside and I'm harming myself. I'm stepping outside of morality, and I'm encouraging these karmic effects that will lead to all sorts of chaos and lower states of being. So it's coming back into that and having that as the foundation. So he mentioned many meditation practices will teach you about samadhi, calming the mind, but they don't start with this foundation of morality. They don't start with that being the baseline. So this is what was taught very, very early on at the very beginning, to establish this morality of not killing, not stealing, not telling lies. Like, these are all very basic things to that we all know deep within us that is moral, and this is immoral. So it's very common sense. It doesn't need a dogma, or it doesn't need any written sort of explanation. It is universal. And that was another thing that I really loved about this practice and the teachings within, is everything was stressed of like, we don't want this to be a sect or a religion. This is not a religious practice. This is not something to distinguish. This is not something to tell you that you have to do it this way just because. This is something that is universally true, and one you can prove yourself. So when we commit immoral acts, we can immediately feel the karmic consequences of this immoral behavior. So it's just remembering that I have to have this morality as my foundation. So Shila was the first principle that was taught, and this was more of just an intellectual learning and a sort of commitment. So the course is designed in this way to encourage Shila being foundational throughout. And he even mentioned that that's one of the reasons why noble silence is observed, because part of morality is don't tell a lie. So if you can't speak, then it's much harder to tell a lie. So, because even if we are speaking and we're giving some slight exaggeration or some half truth, it's still not true. And anything that is not true is ultimately a lie. So everything within the course was designed in this way. Not killing. The food that was served was all vegetarian, which I'll get into more of that later. And yeah, it was all designed to give this foundation of morality throughout the experience, so that you could build upon that as we go deeper into the purification of the mind. So I'll just pause there and see if Taylor, if you want to add any more thoughts on the morality, the Shila aspect of it before we go deeper into the other principles.
Brother, that was beautifully stated and well said. Really the one thing I want to bring to the forefront is just throughout each, like in every step of the process, was number one, a simplification of the process, but also just a focus on that heightened sense of conscious awareness, right? Like the more that we can like quicker notice immorality, or quicker notice a pain in the body or a sensation in the body, which we'll get to here shortly on the kind of techniques. I think that's really what it's all about. We talk about fine tuning the mind, training the mind, mastering the mind. That's really what it comes down to, is just, again, being more patient with self, being more gentle with self, but having a quicker recognition, whether it be through your own like intuition, whether it be feeling through the body, feeling the chakra centers of the body, and just having a better sense of not ego judgment external or ego judgment internal, right? Inward or outward, but slightly different than judgment is that intuitive discernment that you and I talk about so much. So simply stated, on the topic of morality, this practice of Vipassana, getting in, really sitting in and sitting with the body, healing, for me at least, it allows me to have a better sense of discernment across the board. We talk about the subtle energy bodies, we talk about the subtle sensations, and we'll do a deep dive into that a little bit later. But I believe it's all connected, mind, body, soul, and it's through the body and through these physical sensations of beginning to notice it, to focus on it, and with it, to sit with it. It really enhances our awareness of everyday reality. And I'm experiencing this like live time as I speak to you. Again, we're one day fresh off of this 10-day silent meditation retreat. And at least for me, like I've been hypersensitive to like all this external like stimuli, like from just a different setting to obviously conversations to these devices that I'm like having to relearn how to use a phone. I say that tongue in cheek jokingly, but there is a beauty in simplicity, and really for me, it is all about getting back to the basics, to heal the root, to, identify, not overly stress about it, but identify the root cause of our suffering, of our misery, and unwind it. And like, not on a surface level or superficial level, or, not a tip or trick, or not even a best practice or hack. There are no shortcuts to this process. There's no bypassing to this process. Again, 10 days, silence, seated in meditation, 8 to 10 hours or more. And there was suffering, each and every one of us, I know it, we were fighting our own battles, mentally, physically, and everything in between, whether it be stress of the past, anxiety of the future. All of it was out of the present moment, which is really where the only place in the eternal now present moment where we can experience that heaven on earth, where we can experience true peace, true happiness, true harmony. And world peace starts with inner peace. And that's what it's all about. So yeah, thank you.
Yeah, thank you. Beautifully said. And yeah, so once established that foundation of Shila, this morality, then we can move to samadhi, which is the calming of the mind, because we can't begin to purify the mind in the binya until we have a calm mind. So the first practice that was encouraged after you gave your commitment to staying in a moral state, after you gave your commitment to staying on the course the whole time. Of course, no one is held hostage, but they did make sure to emphasize that, like, to really like commit to staying there the whole time, because it's known it's going to be challenging. There's going to be
not to interrupt, I think there was one guy that left, that like dipped out like after day 2. It was like Goenka called it. He was like, day 2 and day 6, for whatever reason, were two of the most difficult in the past. And yeah, there was one guy who left early. So that was interesting to see,
Yeah, I mean, I thanks for pointing that out. I didn't even notice anybody leaving, but I was so absorbed into the process. But yeah, just to really commit to staying there the whole time was essential, because knowing that it is going to be very challenging, to have that up front, that strong determination to say, I'm going to stick it out the entire time, no matter what comes up, no matter what sort of discomfort I feel, I'm going to sit through this. I'm going to get through it. And yeah, just for people with concerns around the posture portion of it, it is really more emphasized just to be still. So they were very accommodating to anyone getting into whatever posture they needed to, whether you're sitting in a chair, sitting up against a wall, or just sitting on the open floor. You find that space of comfort to where you can handle that. Of course, pushing oneself to a degree, but not torturing oneself. They made sure to emphasize this. This is not here to torture you. You're here to find that space of stillness so that we can go deeper into it. So going from the commitment to stay and the morality of Shila, then we move to the samadhi, which is really the sama samadhi, because it has this foundation of Shila, it has this foundation of morality, and that's the calming of the mind. And so through that practice, it was emphasized to practice anapana meditation, which was essentially just focusing on the breath. So they had us pay attention to the inhale and the exhale, not consciously trying to move the breath, but the natural breath. So a big part that I want to emphasize within this practice, and what they strongly talked about, was we don't want any sort of visualization or mantras or any other distraction for the mind to focus on. We just want to stay with that which is. And we are always breathing, and we always have feelings within the body. So these are the main things that we're focused on as we go deeper into this practice. So the Samasamadhi with the Anapana practice was just focusing on the breath, the slow releasing, or really however it came, however you were breathing, you were just to notice it. So to truly just notice the breath, to feel in and out through the nostrils, and just notice it. So for the first few days, this is all we were doing, sitting in meditation, just focusing on the breath, not forcing the breath to do anything. He said that if you had trouble noticing the breath, maybe take a few harder breaths just to regain the conscious awareness of the breath, but then to move back into that natural state of being, to truly just observe. Because that's all we're doing, to come back to the state of Dhamma, that which is. We're not trying to force anything. We're not trying to direct anything. I need to be this conscious observer of that which is. So this was the practice given in the first few days to sort of help calm the mind and come back into that state of serenity, at least to a degree. And it was quite something. I mean, I was amazed at how wild my mind spun just going into this practice of coming back to the breath. And he would comment on this, how it's amazing to observe how the mind is like a wild animal. It's like a ferocious beast that's just constantly ready to take you any which direction. And it truly is. When you have no other distraction and all you're doing is focusing on the breath, there's no mantra, there's no ohms, there's no visualization, there's no name or guru or anyone to visualize or center that attention onto. It's amazing how much the mind can take you any which direction. So that was quite the challenge, especially those first few days. But as was kept being reiterated, this patience and persistence, this constantly dedication, this continuous attention to this and this continuous practice, little by little, you felt the mind lose its strength, not in a way to where I didn't have power within my mind, because the mind is extremely powerful, but it just was not exerting this powerful force over me in an uncontrollable way. So I was able to go deeper into regaining control over that. So that's what was experienced in the first few days, to really get into that state of calm mind. So as you can imagine, we'd wake up. So every day we'd wake up at 4 a.m. and we would be meditating, small meal breaks, small breaks in between, but largely meditating until 9 p.m. each night. So there would be many meditations. There'd be one lecture portion in each evening to kind of go deeper into what this practice is all about. And so, as you can imagine, just spending all this time sitting and focusing on the breath and just observing that which is, and doing the best not to be so overwhelmed by the many which ways the mind would take you. And it took me many places. The mind was constantly taking me all over the place, and I'd find myself way out somewhere I don't even know, and I don't even know how I got there. But every time, we don't get upset with that. We don't get overwhelmed by that, but just to come back to the breath. So just retraining the mind to come back to the breath every single time it started to lose that focus. And this continuous reiteration of that is what allowed this practice to sink in deeper and deeper and deeper. So yeah, I'll just pause there on the sort of next sort of portion of what was taught in this practice, and I'll pass it over to you if you have any comments on that.
Yeah, I'll just keep it brief, as it relates to the technique. It's almost like the more simple we made it, the first, few days, just focusing on the breath, like literally just the natural breath. And this is coming from a, breathwork facilitator, whatever title you want to give me. Like, it was actually extremely difficult. Like, the more simplified this entire process was, especially on the front end, for me at least, it was more difficult not to attach a label of a word, like inhale love, exhale peace, right? That's kind of my go-to. And there's nothing wrong with that. But for this particular practice, like, so simplified on the most basic of human levels, honestly, the first 2 or 3 days were most difficult for me. Just sitting with the breath, not getting overly frustrated or agitated of the wandering mind, as you and I keep touching on, really practicing that self-compassion, that patience, that gentleness with self, not getting angry or mad again or agitated about the mind drifting, but just once we notice it, awareness is our superpower. So shine that light of awareness upon it, and just gently, lovingly bring the mind back to the body, back to the breath. For me, and I know we'll get into these, next kind of couple steps of the routine, but for me, those first couple of days of just in and out the breath through the triangular portion, focusing in at just the nostril area, was so difficult for my wandering mind, for my breathwork background. I think it's safe to say that we as humans, generally speaking, are master complicators, right? For better or for worse. And I don't know. I mean, as the practice progressed and as the styling progressed and as the kind of tools for our tool belt were expanded, and we'll go through this, in a little more detail. For me, it loosened everything up. For me, that's where, oh man, that's where like the true, I was about to say the true healing, but it was all healing in different ways. Um, so yeah, those first few days were absolutely difficult, from just staying seated, literally staying grounded, staying still, working through those aches and pains of like sitting in a perfect Indian style or lotus pose, straight spine the entire time. No phone to look down at, with a crooked spine or, bending over your neck. And it's just the whole course, like from a physical standpoint, was a realignment, like realigning with the divine inside, and like literally on a biochemical, physiological level as well. So that's just where, again, the most simple of steps of the process of being present, of being seated, of being still, of not leaving the facility, especially early on. That right there was absolutely a test of commitment, a test of devotion, a test of our will. And I believe once we work through those first 2 or 3 days of just triangular nostril breathing, it actually loosened up quite a bit. And yeah, I'll pass it back over to you so we're going to continue to weave.
Yeah, thanks for that. And I'd agree. The first few days were certainly the hardest for me. I mean, it was just that wandering mind continually. It's like I've got this simple task to focus on the breath, and every time I start to, within a matter of minutes, it's already gone somewhere else. And then, but again, the process was to not get frustrated, not get upset, just bring it back, gently bring it back, calmly bring it back. No matter how many iterations, no matter how many times, just calmly bring it back to the breath. And as we progressed, each day, as Taylor mentioned, this sort of triangular area was the focus of focusing on that and the feeling of the breath coming in and out of the nostrils. That area was isolated to focus and sharpen the mind, because that's essentially what this practice is doing. We talked about, Taylor mentioned earlier about the mind and heart connection. So this is essentially bringing the mind into the body, the heart, through feeling. So to have this awareness and to bring it back into feeling, and that's what kind of leads me into the next principle, the penya, which is wisdom or purification of the mind. So on a simple practical level, what the technique involved was to bring the attention from the breath after a few days of really calming the mind and able to find, like, to take away some of the ferocity and some of that aimless wanderings that the mind would do, and bring it into, let me notice, what feeling am I feeling? What are the sensations? So what am I feeling in this tiny little area? And you start with a tiny area at first, so as not to confuse the mind and not to give too much, to bite off more than you can chew. So you start out with just this tiny area to focus on, what am I feeling there? What are the sensations? But it's very important within these sensations, because the whole point of this wisdom, this purification with the mind, as I mentioned before, the reason this practice was so effective was because it's reevaluating this reactionary state where I'm constantly judging whatever I'm experiencing in one direction or another and creating some craving or aversion to it. So when we have a feeling within ourselves, it immediately is, if it's a pain, we have some aversion to it, and we say, I hate this pain, I don't like it, and we have that aversion. Well, this is an attachment and something to distract us away from Dhamma, or that which is. We have removed ourselves from this equanimous, neutral observation point. Likewise, if I experience something that is pleasurable, I can develop a craving towards that, to where I'm like, if I'm not experiencing this pleasurable feeling, then all of a sudden I'm attached or I'm expecting to have something that is not there. So again, I am moving away from Dhamma, that which is, into something that is not. And this is the mental games that are played. And that's why this purification is so effective, because it's helping us to move back into the state of feeling with our mind the sensations within the body. But the real magic happens with how you perceive each of these sensations, and always maintaining this equanimous state. So a neutral state of being. So to be aware and to be equanimous. Equanimity is essential, to be consciously neutral within our observation point, not falling into the cravings or the aversions every which way. So as I mentioned, you'd start with that small area to really sharpen the mind and feel the sensations that would come up on the nose. And I do like how it was stressed. And one of the reasons why silence between the meditators was practiced was because we don't want to get into this habit of comparison to others. So sharing our experiences and what we were feeling can create this egoic problem, to where all of a sudden I'm instilling some hierarchy of like, these feelings are better than others, or this person's feeling this and I'm not feeling that, so I'm doing something wrong, they're doing something right, or I'm better than because I'm experiencing this and that. So all of that's kind of eliminated by having this noble silence, so that you can truly have this personal individualized experience of really feeling what it is that I'm feeling and adopting this neutral equanimous state. So I'm not reacting in any which direction. I'm not moving into this state of aversion or craving any which way, which are all forms of attachment, which all lead to this path of suffering. So yeah, it really was powerful in that sense. And I'll just mention too, what I found very helpful was the breakdown of the four minds within how we react, how we get to this state of reaction. And that's kind of where this practice developed, and what led to Siddhartha Gautama to find this practice and really dive deeper into it. Because as I mentioned, many spiritual teachers would talk about getting out of the reactive state of being. This was commonly known of like, this leads to suffering. This is something that we want to undo. The ego loves to react, and we want to stay in conscious response. So intellectually, this was very known and this was taught. But as far as a practical application of how we reevaluate, the root cause was never established. So you might be able to rewrite some surface level behavior and step out of that reactive state of being. But if you don't address the root cause of where that's coming from, then it's going to pop up again as soon as what Goenka called the volcano erupts, and it's going to overtake us, and it's going to move us into any which direction to where we're reacting once again. So I really enjoyed the breakdown of the mind between this cognitive mind, the recognitive mind. So cognition, recognition, and then the perception or judgment behind that recognition, and then the reaction that comes from that. So I'll give an example. Cognition, you hear something. That's the cognition mind, is that hearing, that first stimulus entering into the mind, I hear something. The recognition, what is that? I hear music, I hear a musical note. That's the recognition. The judgment around that would be, that is discordant music. It sounds like shit. Or that's harmonious music. That sounds wonderful. This is the judgment that we give it. So we're constantly moving into that state. And then the reaction might be, I yell at whoever's playing that music to say, hey, turn that shit down, or whatever the case may be. That's the reaction where we get to that state. So these are the four states of mind. And if we're unconsciously moving between these four states, then we're not recognizing how I'm just basically a slave to these external stimuli. I'm just going from this cognition, which is the awareness, the observation, the neutral awareness. Cognition is neutral awareness. But every step going from cognition to recognition to judgment to reaction is going deeper and deeper and deeper into just a mental construct. Every layer I'm moving through that is my own perception is stepping in to take me away from Dhamma, from that which is. And so every time I do that, I have the potential to fall deeper and deeper and deeper into misery. especially if I'm doing it unconsciously. And anytime I'm allowing this reaction to take place, and the reactions were called sangharas. So this was, I actually asked the teacher and asked to, I imagine there's, because this was the language spoken, and it reminded me of samsara, the wheel of karma, and sort of this wheel that we get looped on. So sanghara is the reactionary loop. Also, in my mind, it makes perfect sense why these words are so similar, because when we get into these reactionary loops, these are the hell loops. These are the things that keep us stuck into these lower states of being and these lower states of emotions, where I'm constantly just reacting to my external stimuli. I'm no longer conscious. I'm acting in a robotic, slave-like mentality where I'm not the master of my own experience. I'm allowing my external experience to dictate my inward experience. Whereas the truth is the inward experience is always projecting outward. So I have to reclaim my sovereignty within. So recognizing this 4 states of being of the cognition, the recognition, the judgment, and the reaction. And I can't remember all the words that were used for those states of being, but that's generally what they were. Then I can start to reevaluate, okay, where I was within that. And so, as I mentioned, many spiritual teachers taught about this removing of the reactionary state of being, and talked about how we can recognize when something like this happens in our life. Am I reacting or am I responding? Okay, I want to move back into response instead of reaction. And that's all fine and dandy to talk about. But how do we have a practical application to really see where are these reactions occurring, and how can I practice this on a regular basis so I'm not having to wait for some external stimulus to happen to really practice this? And so that's where this meditation really gets effective, is because it's giving a basically a simulated experience that I can take into a meditation to really go through this reactionary state, or recognize when I'm reacting to everything. And the way you do that is to step into the feeling sense. So as I mentioned, you start with the narrow feeling of just the nose, that triangular area, and then you move to a really refined area just above the upper lip and below the nostrils. And it's no longer just sensing the breath that's coming across it, but truly the feelings that come up. And these feelings can arise with anything, whether it's a twitching or an itching or a vibration or pain. And he was very, very persistent on saying, it doesn't matter what you're feeling. It doesn't matter what you're feeling. The whole point is to be equanimous. The whole point is to be neutral about what you are observing, not to go into this reactionary state to say, this feeling is bad, this feeling is good. So to really isolate that area, to sharpen the mind, and to really, really focus on how am I reacting to this, or am I reacting, and step back into that neutral observation mode. So I'll pass it over to you, Taylor. I know I've said a lot.
No. That was all beautifully stated and very succinct, and very needed, very necessary. It's easy to say with this external stimuli of everyday, life, right? We can identify, our preferences, what we do like. We can identify what we don't like. We can identify, pain and pleasure triggered outside of us. But through this silent meditation, Vipassana, stripping everything away, it really turned everything like upside down and inside out, meaning there was no external stimuli that we could blame or shame or play the finger pointing fault finding game. It was all us and our physical body. So literally there was nothing outside of us to blame on, oh, that's pleasurable, I want that, I crave that, I have a desire outside of me, or ooh, I don't like that. You said the music example, or a food example, food preferences, or a significant other preferences, and just our taste there. It's just so interesting to really peel it all away, remove any and all distraction. And when we say get into the body, I mean, it was inevitable for each and every one of us to fight our own battles physically. And that's on both sides of the coin, right? Two sides of the same coin, meaning pain in the body, right? Aches and pains, and sitting with it without judging it. I mean, that is extremely difficult. Not just a 10-minute sit, like 10 hours a day, right? To sit with aches and pains. For me, it was my root chakra. For me, it was my lower back and into my hips, where like I was really working through a lot of like upheaval of like literally like, digging the roots out of misery. And obviously I can share vulnerably there, maybe in a different time and place and space, but it was just so unique to me, again, to turn everything inside out, to literally bring any and all pain, and on the flip side, pleasure, because there is some beautiful like euphoria and bliss to experience through these deep meditations. And that's where it's so subtle, because so many of us, right, we go to the depths of these types of meditations, and that essentially is what we attach our concept of enlightenment to, right? The ultimate goal is to feel this euphoria, to feel this bliss, to just have every chakra activated and to feel elevated while simultaneously grounded and just anchored in this beautiful heaven on earth. And yes, it's a beautiful thing to experience that. However, this too shall pass. And to not judge not to never get too high, never get too low, but just to honor the ebb and flow in the physical body, right? To not like shame or blame the pain, but simultaneously not get too attached to the euphoria either. It's a slippery slope, this whole detaching thing, right? It's really mind blowing. And Goenka actually used different phrases of, this is going to explode your mind. Like, we are literally here to do brain surgery, unwind the rubber band mind of misery, and help you get into the body by ripping everything away and noticing the pain, noticing the thoughts about the pain that we may be expecting because we felt it yesterday, right? It's this constant comparison. Outside of us was brought inside of us. And again, just being able to identify and observe the pain, and simultaneously identify and observe the pleasure from a equanimous state, from pure non-judgmental neutrality. It's not right or wrong. It is all a part of nature for the individual self, for the being, and to just appreciate it. And if we're not going to appreciate it, we'll just receive it, acknowledge it, and accept it, because it is what it is. And for me, it was like there were some particular days where it's, again, early on, working through the pain because it's something new, because it's something uncomfortable. They say, get comfortable in the uncomfortable. Like, this experience was the definition of that, one-liner phrase, get comfortable in the uncomfortable. But after working through the pain, for me at least, I remember, I want to say day 6 was a beautiful day for me. Like, I had, my body had gotten used to like sitting in that particular posture, like completely still, like a monk for, 10 hours a day. And day 6, like, I was really like enjoying these like pleasurable sensations of just like euphoria and like just feeling like unbelievable bliss, unbelievable joy, like tears of joy at times, and letting it flow as it needs to flow, but not becoming too attached to these feelings that I've, in the past and in the present moment was labeling as desirable, as pleasurable, as my preference to, I would rather feel this euphoria than this pain. And I think that right there is just a whole nother level of this transformative practice. It's a game changer. It's because on the front end, yes, okay, we all realize there's going to be a little bit of pain to work through, a little bit of suffering to work through, but to like actually observe the good and be able to set down the good, right? The craving piece of it, that right there was just for me at least, a much deeper and more advanced layer or level to this whole game. And once we realize, yes, we may be tested on the front end and a little bit throughout, zoom out. This life is better played as a game versus stress as a test. And when we can maintain a sense of fun, or at least an open sense of like allowance, whatever it may be, will be, get into a state of receivership, knowing that we were giving our time and giving our energy, and like at some points in time, like sacrificing our body, like sacrificing our routine, sacrificing time with our families, and just getting out of our comfort zones. Like, that right there at least allows me, number one, to be more present, number two, to not only appreciate this life to a greater degree, but to show up to not just meditation practice, but to maintain a constant state of meditate where I'm anchored in not only gratitude, but a deeper sense of reverence, like respect, honor, through presence of all of it, the good, the bad, what I've labeled thereof, and what remains to be experienced, without judging it, right? That's easier said than done until we like really slip into that allowance. And yeah, I'll pause there. So thank you.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, you touched on some great things there as far as the law of impermanence, which is what allows us to stay in this neutral observational state. And I don't even know how you spell this word, but he said it quite often of anicca, 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 and he would repeat it. But this is the observation of the fact that that which is Dhamma, the fact that everything is changing. The only constant in this experience is change. So as soon as we become attached to something as if it's a solid thing that will stay, and we start to cling and grab and hold, and we have these cravings and aversions, and we expect things to happen a certain way, then we're not observing this fact that nature is constantly changing. Everything is changing around us. And so I'm developing suffering. Anytime that I am clinging to something that is outside of that which is, I will suffer. So how do I recognize the mind to get into this state to where I'm neutrally observing that which happens? And that's what this practice really does. So just going back into the practicality, we'd move from this small area into then focusing on basically scanning the body from head to toe, and then eventually from toe to head. So going back and forth through the entire body, truly feeling every single sensation, every single feeling within the body. But it's not just that, it's truly staying in that state of neutral observations, to be equanimous, to be aware and to be equanimous throughout the whole experience was the point of this. You know, that's what it could be boiled down to, why we're doing this practice, to be aware and to be neutral as I go through this state of scanning the body. And it's not just to address what sort of feelings or sensations I'm having, but to use this as a simulation so that I can address, where is this reactionary state of being? Where am I developing these sangharas, these loops, these hell loops, where I'm just reacting to everything that I experience around me? And he spoke about how every time we have a craving or an aversion, we are moving into this reactive state. We're developing deeper these sangharas, and he drew them, compared them to a deep cut. So it might just be like the first time that we have a craving or an aversion around a particular stimuli, it might just scratch the surface, something that can be easily healed or unwound. But if we've gone through a lifetime of unconsciously developing this reactionary state, then these sangharas go deeper and deeper and deeper. And every time we unconsciously react, it goes deeper. So it takes time to unwind and unravel these. But to stop and address the problem, we have to stop reacting. And how do we do that? Well, you develop a practice to where I can recognize every state of being within my body and not react to it. So that when I come into an interaction with everyday people all around me, I can have a moment to say, wow, I don't need to react to this. I can respond to this. I can take a breath. I can take a pause. So it's just a great way to sort of reevaluate that in and of itself. And yeah, so that was one thing that you touched on that I thought was great. And then the other was just this consideration around, yeah, how the sort of new agey pseudo spiritual community loves to spiritually bypass and only focus on that which is pleasurable, and have these lofty ideas around meditation and the spiritual path as if it's all about seeking bliss and pleasure and bypassing the darkness or the pain that I'm experiencing at hand. This is an experience where it is quite challenging. We are going to experience pain and suffering. We are going to experience these sort of darker moments in life. But how can I respond to these instead of react to them? So if I'm just bypassing them, if I'm just pretending that they don't exist, if I'm just parading myself around, I'm a meditation expert and all I do is experience bliss all the time and nothing, I never experience any hardship, then I'm just portraying my own sanghara, this reactionary state where I'm addicted to craving, and I'm craving solely that experience, and I'm not even aware of like, I've stepped away from that which is. I've stepped away from the truth. I'm living a lie at that point. So how can I recognize that state and come back to centrality, come back to neutrality, come back to the center? That's why all of these ascended masters taught the middle path, because it's not about being, it's not about being continually one way or the other. It's about finding that balance within and recognizing how that sits in every way and every moment. So yeah, I'll pause there.
No, and I'll just, bring up one point, like to bring it full circle, of course, one attends a Vipassana for self-healing. It all starts with self, but like on a day-to-day, like especially like relational through our relationships, with a significant other, our family, interactions, co-workers, strangers for that matter, it's so true. And this experience for me was such like a beautiful, like personified, like embodiment of this truth. Like we can only love others to the depths of how we love ourselves, and vice versa. Like however much we love ourselves, that then opens the door for others to love us to that depth, right? Both deep and wide. And it's just so important to, acknowledge that fact and to, again, not judge it, but just have the discernment, have the awareness, again, awareness being our light, our superpower. Got two dogs here having fun. Awareness being our superpower. And once we shine that light of awareness upon any of it, right? The craving, the aversions, the avoiding things, the denying of things, the preferences, right? The craving piece of it, of what we do like, what we do desire, and the pain side of it as well. Like when we attach expectation to any part of the equation, it's going to inevitably hinder growth. It's going to inevitably get us out of the eternal now, present moment. It's going to inevitably bring up some comparisons of the past and how things should be, could be in this present moment up against the future that is never promised. So it's just this practice of Vipassana, this practice of meditation, which really life itself is a meditation. Life itself is yoga. Life itself is and can be a Vipassana if we allow it to be. It's just this like continual like spiritual paradox of like life is difficult until it's not, right? Like it's like we don't have to complicate things, but often doing the shadow work, it could feel as though this complication of reality is sometimes needed. And then we look up and realize like what we are practicing is in fact so simple, and it can be simple. And it's just, again, it's kind of an ebb and flow through every dynamic of it, the pain, the pleasure, the simplicity, the intricacies, the attachments, the observations. It's just, again, coming back into the body, coming back into the breath, and identifying the physical sensations. And when we can better fine tune and like really collapse time as it relates to preventing extended durations between being triggered and noticing it, right? That's what I mean by that heightened sense of conscious awareness, is like simply noticing it quicker, noticing when we get triggered quicker, noticing the pain quicker, not judging it, noticing when we judge it, right? Noticing the craving to the pleasure quicker. It's just a quicker shift of awareness. Not only helps us remain aligned with the divine inside, meaning have that much deeper level of self-love and self-compassion for self, but it allows so much greater pure peace and harmony to be experienced through our everyday relationships, everyday interactions, everyday conversations. It truly is energy. Everything is energy, and energy is everything. And just showing up in love, anchored in gratitude, we can literally transmute and transform otherwise what would be, could be potentially negative conversations, negative interactions. None of it has to be bad. And we also don't have to show up to the table with an expectation of good either. It just is. And being in love, unconditional, to give freely without expectation of reciprocation, we then and there fall back into truth, into trusting that the universal laws will take care of themselves. The universal law of reciprocity will be fulfilled on its own. And we, in fact, will be receiving through giving. So I'll pause there as these dogs are having a blast. But yeah, so much love.
Thanks for that. Yeah, it truly is all energy, and that goes back to this law of impermanence, that there is nothing truly solid, there's nothing consistent. So if I grow attached to this illusion, then I will suffer. This is what encourages misery. So if I mean, even just looking at this from a structural level, the fact that this wall feels solid to me right now, but if we look at it at a small cellular subatomic level, it's just waves. It's just particles, and then you go deeper, it's just waves. They're just vibrations, slowed down to a slow form, so it has the appearance of physicality, but there's truly nothing physical about it. There's nothing of substance about any of this. So why would I grow upset or get off my state of balance when that is what is natural? Everything is changing. So if I can grow comfortable with this consistent change, not to be overwhelmed by it, but just to grow consistent and comfortable with it, then I don't have to stay in this bout of suffering. I can truly stay in the state of being and truly just enjoy this experience for what it is. And it's not something that I have to prove or worship, listen to some dogma or have some sort of rites or rituals to gain this knowledge. This is something through direct experience that we can have. We can recognize when I'm in a reactionary state and it leads to that bout of suffering. Oh, where did that come from? Oh, because I was attached to this sort of expectation that it needed to go this way, or they said this thing and that pissed me off. And why are you giving them power? Why are you giving this experience power over you? Reclaim that power, reclaim that sovereignty. And all you have to do that, it's just step back into the here and now, step back into the present moment and observe things neutrally. Don't take things personally. Step back into that aspect. So it's extremely powerful to do. And it really helps us to reevaluate these things. And that's why this practice of moving through the body, feeling every sensation that comes up, observing it with neutrality. And if you come across something like, say, you hit a portion of the body and it's painful and you have a reaction to it and you're like, man, that sucks. Okay, well then just pause and say, okay, I reacted there. Let me come back into this state of neutrality, this equanimous state of being, observe it neutrally and move on. Recognize that this will change. This will change. This sensation will change. It is not permanent. And so that in effect, in the bodily sense, moving into this, having this practice to do this, to simulate this in that sense. Then when somebody comes along and pisses me off or does something, stabs me in the back or whatever the case may be, it's like, well, this shall pass. One is only doing this from a state of ignorance. But I don't have to grow attached to that. I don't have to have some expectation that it has to be another way. Just observe it neutrally and move and recognize that change is the only thing. Change is the only constant within this experience.
Well, and so often when we see, something that triggers us outside of us, we're all mirror reflections of one another. So, the first thing for me, at least, to do is to turn the mirror back on myself and say, where can I be more patient with myself? Where can I be a little more kind with myself? Where can I be a little more kind with others? Like, am I speaking in that harsh tone to others, or am I losing my patience? What may seem to be irrationally, often the triggers and the recurring lessons and patterns and themes that God serves us is not to punish us. And truly, it's not to test us, even though in a vacuum it might feel like a test. Again, these are all lessons to be learned, and really, most importantly, to take self-responsibility, to take self-inventory, to be accountable for how we show up, whether it be reaction or response, or a combination thereof, and really just own who we are and how we show up in this world today. I believe that's the most important piece of all this, because again, we as humans are so quick to divert blame. We're so quick to shame others or guilt trip others or crucify something outside of us, when if we are experiencing it or observing it or perceiving it through any of the four minds that Justin had touched on, the four aspects of our mind, and perceiving this shared space reality, well then if there is no separation, then in some way, shape, or form, that type of non-preferred behavior, right, or bad behavior or triggering experience, that must exist somewhere within me. So where can I clean up my side of the street? I believe that on a practical level, on a relationship level, again, 8 billion people, one rock, more interconnected than ever before, not by chance, right? We could have just as easily been born into our own separate universes, our separate planets, all lined up side by side without any awareness of our neighbor, without the need for communication or linguistics or language at all. But that's not the case. We are a very social species. We are very interconnected, and we are all connected, and there is no separation. Therefore, when anything outside of me triggers me, the power of the pause is everything. To pause, to reflect. And I know easier said than done, but it does take practice, and it does require that heightened sense of conscious awareness. And through training the body, we can easier master the mind.
Yeah, it truly all starts within. So anything that I'm experiencing in the external is simply a reflection of that internal state. So therefore, I can take responsibility for every layer that I am experiencing and recognize that it's all happening for me, not to me. So it's encouraging me to move into that space of conscious awareness and responding, not reacting. So if something's there pissing me off, then that's the wonderful teacher giving me an opportunity to reevaluate this little trigger or that little thing that was ultimately holding me back. So this is something that we can do in everyday practice, and we should. However, this meditation practice is something to where, as I mentioned, you can simulate that experience of reacting constantly and slow that down to eventually eliminate this constant reactionary state of being so that I'm no longer reacting to my external stimuli. I can have this practice to really go through and feel these different sensations and sort of reprogram the mind to be constantly reacting and stopping to do that, but having grace for myself along the way. We don't need to create attachment or aversion or clinging or craving to this process as if it's the end all be all. It's truly going to unfold in the most beautiful way that it can. But this is an extremely helpful tool to practice this on a regular basis. It's all about that consistency. So this is bringing us to this higher state of awareness. And I loved how in the course, and I actually picked up the little bookmark that they gave, which goes over the 10 paramis or the 10 perfections, which every one of these could have or was practiced in this course. And once you reach each of these, once you perfect each of these are the path to true liberation. This is where the dissolution of the ego and the return to the complete activation, realization occurs. So the first is dana, or generosity. Pretty self-explanatory, to recognize the fact that we are all connected. So why would I not give? Because in withholding from others, I'm just withholding from myself. So this is what steps into this generosity. Sila, as I mentioned before, or morality, is the practice of recognition again that we are all connected. So there's no room to harm another aspect of self. I would just be harming myself, which is just madness. It's truly madness to participate in that. The next is nekama, or renunciation. So this is renouncing the external influences and giving them power over me. So in a Babylonian societal way, this is taking steps. Of course, this is not something that we can immediately do all at once. We have to take these baby steps to move in this way, but to renounce the external ways and move back into this internal practice completely. So I can step back into that full responsibility and that full power and not be reliant on that which is external. And then there's pana, or wisdom. Pretty self-explanatory there. There's viraya, or effort. So giving that conscious effort into what I'm practicing. Khanti, or tolerance, which is, again, not moving into this state of judgment or aversions or craving around reacting to what am I experiencing in the external. Truly just having the state of tolerance, the state of contentment, the state of, just neutrality in everything that I experience.
I'm so glad you said the word contentment. Yes.
Yeah. Saka is truth. Again, if we don't have truth, then we have no stability, we have no foundation. So using the parable from the Bible, if we have built our house on the sand, then it will be blown away at the first storm. So we have to build our house on that solid rock, that foundation, to test all the storms, to test the test of time. And we can only do that if we stand in truth. If we are lying to ourselves, if we're lying to others, then yeah, good luck. It won't work. The next is adhitthana, strong determination. So this is this commitment to saying that I'm here in this experience, and I want to take it seriously, not overly seriously. I should clarify. This is not something to where I'm like again growing attached to this sort of way of being has to be the way, and everyone else has to do this. But it's having a commitment to saying I'm ready to play this game fully. I'm ready to step into it as much as possible. When we play a game, we play it seriously, but we also recognize that it's a game. So we're not going to lose ourselves in it, but we play the game seriously. So just having that strong determination to stay in that. Metta is selfless love. So again, recognition of connection to all. There's no way to step out of this selfless love because all is self. So there's no separation. And then upekkha is equanimity. So again, that neutrality to observe and to be with all, recognizing that all is impermanent. Nothing is consistent. Everything will change. So the only way or the only route that I go when I get upset or get addicted or have these cravings or aversions, I'm moving outside of that state of balance. I'm moving outside of Dhamma, and I'm moving into suffering. And I am the only one that can change that. I'm the only one that can rewrite that. There's no savior. There's no guru. There's no teacher. There's no master. There's nobody else that can do this for us. We have to take full responsibility of these moments where we step outside of this state of that which is, this equanimous state of being, and we move into suffering. So yeah, those are the 10 paramis, the 10 perfections, which I thought were helpful. And each of those could be practiced within the course, which I thought was a really neat. And the comparison was that each of these were like a bucket or a jar, and you're adding little drops to these jars. And once you've filled up each one, then that's the truly liberated self. You've reached that enlightened state of being. So yeah, just wanted to add that as well.
It's a beautiful thing. Yeah. I say we open it up if you're ready.
Yeah, I'm ready. If anyone has any questions, this would be a great time to raise your hand and to chime in. There was a little bit more I wanted to touch on just as far as specifics in the course. But while I go over that, if you have any questions, just feel free to raise your hand and I'll open up your mic, and then we'll get to that queue in the right time. So one thing that I wanted to address just on the sort of details aspect was sort of just, ways that Taylor actually asked me this question the other night, and something I'd been considering of just ways that I would improve the course, some layers or some aspects of it that I would like to see to step into a further efficiency and further effectiveness of presenting something like this. And I want to make note that there's very little of this. It was done very, very well. There was very, very, very little consideration or things that I would change, but there are some aspects that I think could improve this course significantly if they would employ them. And so one I mentioned earlier was just the food that was served was in some sense quite delicious. But you had very limited options as far as what you could choose. And part of that is for a very good reason of you're entering into this 10-day experience to essentially be a monk or a nun for these 10-day experience and sort of surrender to that which is. And so as a monk or a nun, you're not always able to, perhaps you're at least in this practice, you would be perhaps begging or asking for your food. And so whatever it is that you were served is what you'd have to work with. And I think that's a great practice as far as moving away from this whole illusion of choice and always constantly being upset or averse to whatever it is that we're provided. So I like it in that sense. However, what was provided wasn't there were some good options within it. But as far as like stepping into, I know many listeners here are moving into this state of health and wellness, of getting away from cooked foods, getting certainly away from animal products, and moving into the state of that which our Mother Earth provides is going to bring us to our greatest state of health. So just specifically, they did offer fruit for every breakfast. The fruit quality was not the greatest, but it was there. It was always there as an option. So that was something that I was able to stay consistently for every breakfast, which is having some oranges, some bananas. And I did enjoy that part as well. They did have things like oatmeal and I think like stewed prunes or something like that. And then some cereals and things of that nature for people who wanted that. But you had a choice within that. But I would like to see an improvement of the course is like really, let's get deeper into this healing practice of let's refine the choices within that. So if we are going to employ this practice of like, I'm going to accept only that which is provided, then why not provide the most nutritionally beneficial things and have a spread of, just healthy fruit, smoothies and juices that people could choose from for that break fast as we ease our way into the day and move into a greater state. So that's something that I would really like to see, to sort of step away from the cooked food aspect, because then in the lunch meal, and I guess I'll make a quick note, as far as the meals were concerned, I did really like that they employed intermittent fasting as a big aspect of the course. So we ate at 6:30 for breakfast, and then we had an 11 o'clock lunch. And then especially the old students were encouraged not to have any evening meal. The new students could have fruit if they wanted to, for a 5 o'clock meal. But I stuck with pretty much just having those first two meals. So 6:30 a.m. and then 11 a.m. lunch. So it's a pretty narrow window for consuming food, and which is great to have that huge window of intermittent fasting to really let the body process and go through that. So I really enjoyed that part of the process. I thought that was really helpful. But as far as what was served at lunch, now, I myself dipped into some temptations. There was certainly an option to always make a salad. They had a decent salad bar. It was very simple, but it was certainly something that I could have stuck with. And most days I did. Most days that's what I primarily stuck with. But it did get very tempting when there was like a nice curry out there or something else that was quite delicious or tempting. So for me, I would, of course, this was a great practice in cravings and not going to things that might not serve me as much. And I felt it certainly when I would overconsume in the cooked foods areas and eat things that were much heavier and denser. I felt it, and I felt the degradation of my meditations. So that in and of itself was a great observational, neutral, equanimous practice to have that and to be aware of like, okay, this is how things would move. And this is how I felt when I did this. So I enjoyed that part of the process. But in general, I do think the course could be enhanced if we'd move to, as I mentioned, having just fruit smoothies and juices in the rising, and then having maybe just a huge salad bar, with lots of healthy things for the lunchtime meal, and just having that as your only option, so that everyone there is getting into the state of deeper health. And I know people are coming from all sorts of things, and so it might be a stretch too far for some. But we're going deeper into healing in lots of ways, so we might as well take that as an employment for the meal times as well. Yeah, and as far as the I mentioned they were vegetarian options, so I did like how that everything was clearly marked, but they did serve dairy, so it wasn't something that was consistently around, but there were definitely some dishes that had dairy in them, and then they usually had some form of like yogurt and things that you could put on it. I did appreciate that they were separate, surely, but a big part of what they stress in the morality aspect is the not killing portion of it, and to not be inducing suffering through our actions, whether conscious or unconscious. So to me, it's sort of careless to not recognize that the dairy industry and the fact that these animals go through a very significant amount of torture and death in this industry, to still be using these kind of foods. One, they're not bringing us to any state of health. We're not baby cows. We're not designed to eat this food at all. And two, this substance has a lot of suffering, torture induced into the substance. So anyone who's consuming that is going to be absorbing these vibrations, is going to be taking away from the purity of the practice. So I would love them to reconsider this fact and truly employ this pursuit of Dhamma, that which is, and recognize that this is not a natural way to serve these kind of things in this kind of space. So those would be just some considerations I give around what was served. So yeah, I don't know if you have any thoughts on that, Taylor, you want to share?
Well, I definitely honor everything that you'd mentioned. It's certainly valid. And, just generally speaking, everything was pretty clean. I support the, what I would label like just subtle shifts of like, removing this, a little bit more of that. But overall, I mean, just considering the fact that for first time, students, this 10-day course is is free of charge, it's donation based on the back end. I want to stress that, I mean, it was, definitely a quality, like high quality across the board, like beautiful facility. Um, like, I guess I understand like why and what was served. And, while we shouldn't have expectations, yes, we are all human, and yes, we all have preferences, and honoring that. I thought they did a good job at just like at least kind of covering all their bases, because there were, I know age is just a number, but there were some like younger students, who, they'd go for the cereal stuff and the milk stuff, and I'm not here to judge that, but I believe that as one grows in awareness, we all like, the rising tide rises, all ships rise. And, I do appreciate you bringing this topic to the surface. It could have been cleaner, sure, but overall, good quality stuff. And for me personally, like, just, I was doing intermittent fasting, like, I guess you could say more traditionally, where I wasn't eating in the morning going into this Vipassana. I did like kind of the routine of how it was a reverse intermittent fasting, where we kind of front loaded and then, didn't eat after 12, unless it was a couple, a little bit of fruit for the new students. But what I'm saying is that, that kind of reverse intermittent fasting early on, and I know there were a lot of other like new students like me that were literally sitting around me, because we'd look to our left, look to our right, kind of size up other plates. Like, we'd be stacking our plates pretty hefty, right? Especially that 12 o'clock meal. Like, okay, well, I'm not going to be eating until 6 o'clock tomorrow, the next morning, which is again kind of the reverse of my traditional intermittent fasting going into this Vipassana course. So it was just interesting how, over the course of the 10 days, like, I think just naturally, intuitively, at least for me, and I know for some of the guys sitting next to me, like our portions became, we're dwindling in a healthy way. And again, all clean food, all good food that was on my plate, on our plates for the most part. But just interesting to, again, first few days feel as though I was a bear going into hibernation and need to really like, pile on the plate, when in all actuality, especially if we're not doing like dedicated exercising and overexerting of the body, sitting in stillness and meditation, yes, it absolutely was a test of our not only mental ability, but our physicality as well. Like, yes, there was a lot of pains to work through, but we weren't burning a lot of calories, simply stated. So it was a pretty beautiful unfolding for me to just, I guess, better fine tune and tap into my like intuitive eating side, and realize that we really don't need as much as we've been programmed to believe, and in this consumption-based society, right? So I thought that was a really special kind of at least personal experience for me. Again, I always eat clean, but just to kind of like reevaluate the portion sizes, and you said it beautifully, how what we ingest directly impacts the quality, the depth, the connection in our meditations. And I do really appreciate you bringing this topic to the forefront.
Yeah, thank you. And I think that's wonderful that you got to that sort of awareness state of like reducing the portion sizes as you went through this. One thing that I would love them to sort of add to the teachings, at least in a sort of just consideration standpoint, is sometimes all the times I felt that the meal times, they were about 45 minutes long every meal, which is not really that long of a time to sit and chew and then digest the meal. So I would love if they have more focus on conscious eating, consciously chewing, consciously being with the food, and truly turning the eating process as a meditation practice. We're not sitting there talking with anybody else in that mealtime. So we have nothing else to do during that time. Might as well have some awareness of like, okay, maybe I should chew each bite 33 times or 42 times or however many times before I swallow. Have this time to where I can slow down on this gobbling, shoveling things into my mouth because I know my time is limited and I have to put my plate up. So to really have that to be an emphasized portion, because naturally when you do that, and this is something that I'm still working on myself, but certainly when I have more time of consciously eating and slowing down and chewing, I notice that I want to eat less. I don't need to eat as much at a time. So I'd love to see them employ some form of practice around that and just some encouragement for people to do that, because he did talk about how I would suggest not being more than 75% full after your lunch meal, because he recognized, he knew that people, when they heard you're not going to have dinner, it's like, oh God, I've got to eat 3 or 4 plates, got to fill up and last. So to encourage that was amazing, to say, try and eat less than what you would to just stuff yourself. But I think that would naturally occur if you said, okay, instead of a 45-minute meal, we're going to take a 90-minute meal, and we're going to really encourage you to chew every single bite that you take and meditate and feel the sensations as you're eating, feel the sensations as you're swallowing every bite, and feel what that revitalizing energy is doing within your body. And if everything that I'm consuming is imbued with this Mother Nature, Mother Earth imbued essence, then I'm going to be able to connect with the food in that way and reevaluate that unconscious program, this reactionary mind matter condition, into a way to where I can be more conscious in my meal times other times. So that would be something that I'd love to see encouraged and employed at a course like this, for sure. And then another one was, you mentioned just the movement aspect. And this was something that I mentioned the other day, of just, there wasn't any encouragement of real movement. They said, you could take walks. They said to try and suspend your rigorous exercise, which I get doing that, but why not have some form of energetic movement, whether that's some form of light yoga, spinal release yoga, yin yoga, some way to help stretch and add to flexibility so that we can sit in these postures more comfortably, but also to have some time to where energy can move into the body and I can feel my body in a deeper way while I'm moving. Why not bring this meditation of feeling my body into a consciously moving state? Sure, while I'm sitting, it might be easier to focus on these particular areas and I can sharpen my mind. But when I'm in my everyday life, and they actually encourage this later on in the course, to be, when you're walking around, to moving into this, consistently coming back into this feeling state of being, so that my mind is not always wandering. So why not have a practice to where we are moving and I'm employing this practice of feeling every bit of my body, so that when I go out into the world and I'm doing every which way, I'm moving around, I'm going on a walk, I can come back into feeling my chest, feeling my head, feeling my hands, feeling the sensations every which way, and how that comes about. So I'd love them to see, I'd love to see them to use a method like that, just to add some strength to the course and to give it a little bit more oomph in that way.
Yeah, I fully support that. Even just like a light, mindful movement of, Qigong or Qigong, right? Tai Chi, right? Where it's just like in motion for that fluid flexibility, and nothing more. Like, I completely agree. Completely agree.
Yeah, thanks. And then another aspect, which, this I feel like this is one of the most helpful foundational practices to really encourage that mind-body connection. And this is what the sort of Buddhist principles is primarily focused on. Buddhism typically strays away from using terms like God or divinity or angelic etheric realms or things beyond the material. It's really just focused on the mind and the body and the peace within, which is essential as a foundational building block. And if we draw this to the allegories portrayed in the Bible, where it talks about John the Baptist, and Jesus mentions how John the Baptist is the greatest of his time. Well, John the Baptist represents the five physical chakras, the five physical senses. And we have to master the five physical senses. We have to go through the baptism of water to purify the mind and purify the body in order to step into the higher realm. So it's essential that we do this first and foremost. But where I'd love to see them expand is to leave it open to the fact that once this is established, then we move into these higher realms. We move into this more soul connection. There's not a lot of mention of the soul and the higher aspects within it, which of course one can find that within, and naturally we do. But I would just love to see a little bit more discussion and attention on this, as far as like, this is what we move into in these greater states. So yeah, that was just another layer that I'd love to see added onto it. Because for a lot of my listeners, I know that many of you have looked into Kriya as a practice, a meditation practice. And this is something that I want to make sure that I emphasize. I think Kriya is an incredible practice, and it's something that I still will absolutely be using and going deeper within. I think the pairing between these two is significant, and they're quite helpful. But I feel like they kind of address two sides of this experience, where we're supposed to be the union point between. Vipassana is more on this mind body, more the physicality side of it. Kriya is a little bit more focused on the immaterial, the non-physical aspects of it, the sort of energy bodies, the chakra system. So to have a union point between these two, I believe provides a balance within that. And I think I'm actually going to do a dedicated little short show on the comparison between these two. I'm going to experiment for a time on doing both of these practices and just see how much they pair well together. But I just wanted to emphasize, because I know many people have gone through the Kriya practice and found a lot of help within that. I'm not taking anything away from the effectiveness of that practice. This, I just think, is a nice, almost prerequisite. It's like it's helpful to get that foundational aspect to really feel into the body, and it's something that's so simple. And I love how it's not emphasized to be secretive at all. There's no vow of secrecy that one has to give when you learn this practice, that you're not going to share it. It is truly that simple and truly this helpful that it's encouraged to share it far and wide. Of course, going through, one could learn it on their own, but it would take a lot longer to do that in your own space amidst lots of distractions all around you. So to have a time to step away to practice in this intensively in a 10-day course is quite helpful. So definitely want to encourage that for sure. And Taylor, you mentioned this a little bit, and something I wrote in the post, but we haven't talked about much on the show. So just in case you weren't aware, everything within this course was 100% free. There was not a single expectation of paying anything. In fact, they would not even allow you to donate until you've gone through the 10-day course. So they feed you, they house you, they teach you for these 10 days, absolutely free. And the accommodations were lovely. As I mentioned, this was near Joshua Tree. They have these facilities all over the world. And I've heard every single one of them is quite nice. You know, they're simple, but they're very nice. So you have your own room. At this facility, the rooms were very small, you know, like, you know, not a whole lot of room to move about, but it was comfortable. It was a very simple bed, a bathroom, and the meditation hall was nice and comfortable. The dining hall was simple, yet it was fine. And everything around was absolutely beautiful. They really did a great job at putting this in this serene space, surrounded by beautiful nature. Joshua Tree is just this grand desert with mountains all around, and really provided some quite beautiful sunrises and sunsets, which helps me remember one suggestion I would give to the course is let's bring it back to the emphasis around honoring that which is natural, Dhamma, nature, which would be the sunrises and the sunsets every day. I think, of course, this would be flexible depending on the time of year, but why not have an intentional 10, 15-minute break where we go and we meditate with the sun as the sun rises and as the sun sets? We're up during these hours. We get up at 4 a.m. and we don't go to bed until between 9 and 10 p.m. So why not have an intentional time where anytime the sun rises or the sun sets, we stop everything that we're doing. Everyone is encouraged to go outside, do some sun gazing, do some meditation while really enhancing your connection to that which is, to nature, observing the constant changing of the sun moving and the different times of the day that it emerges and sets based on the time of year. I mean, I think that it would just be an amazing way to enhance the practice as well. So yeah, I just wanted to add that also, but again, to stress the fact that everything provided in this course is 100% free. And it just goes to show how effective this course truly is, because the fact that people are so willing to donate after the fact means it is that effective. You know, you're not expected to give up front. They know that you're going to find benefit in it. And so therefore you will at some point in some way, whether it's through telling others or through giving back or a combination of the sort, there will be this continuation, this desire to help bring this into a greater state of being and helping this practice grow further and further so that these centers can grow and more people have access to them and more people hear about them. So I just think that model is so beautiful because it's a model that I employ, and it's a model that I truly believe that moving into this heaven on earth reality will step away from this idea that people have to be charged to receive things. And we move into the state to where it's the responsibility of the one who is receiving to distinguish, to say, okay, what value am I receiving and how can I pay it forward or how can I pay it back to reciprocate this energetic exchange? So I think that's amazing that they've been able to employ this model, and it's been successful, very successful for, I mean, I don't know exactly what year it was brought to the West. I mean, this is an ancient practice that was fortunately saved in Burma, brought back into India, and then it spread from there. Goenkaji was the one who brought it largely to the West. And the videos that we listened to, because it was, and he's just an absolutely adorable guy. Like, unfortunately, he passed away. I'm not sure exactly how long ago, but the videos we watched are from 1991, I think is when they recorded these. And he's just this, I mean, you can tell he's just such a joyful, caring, loving, selfless, compassionate man. And he embodies that in everything that he does and everything that he talks about. And I know that his voice will stick with me for the rest of my life in just the ways that he portrayed things, explained things, emphasized things, reiterated things, and really just taught this in such a beautiful way. So yeah, thank you, Goenkaji, for your gift and your service to humanity. You have done such a wonderful service. It is a gift to receive and such a blessing to be a part of, because it's it's the gift that keeps on giving. And he's very humble in how he portrays everything too. You know, he'll talk about how the gurus will get up, you know, some people didn't even want to listen to him because you didn't look like a guru. He's like, you don't have the matted hair and the long whatever, and you don't have the robes and all the illusions and looks of a guru. He's just a simple guy who wanted to help, who wanted to share a practice that he found extreme benefit in and wanted to give it in all the ways that he could. And so he did, and he helped to bring it as far and as wide as he possibly could. And it is that momentum is only building as more people learn about this, as more people find benefit to this practice and the accessibility of it as well. The only thing that you have to pay to do this course is to dedicate this length of time which of course is a huge task and not to be taken lightly to dedicate that length of time to do something. But as far as the financial limitations, they are not there. They're accessible. These locations are all over the space. For anyone, I wrote in the post the website, but you can find the locations on their website, Dhamma.org, and that's DHAMMA.org. So you can find the locations and where they are and find the nearest one to you. I would recommend signing up early, because not everyone has an experience like Taylor where you're able to get in signing up so last minute. This was obviously a synchronistic message that he needed to get into this course. I had to sign up a couple months in advance in order to hold a spot. They fill up very quickly. As you can imagine, they're desired and they're free. So people will sign up for them. So when the courses open up, there's usually a small window before they fill up. So it'll tell you on the site when each course is offered of when the next thing is going to be open for you to sign up for. And then at that point, it fills up quite quickly. So if you want to do it, I'd recommend signing up early and, just setting aside some time for you to commit to that and embrace this practice and embrace going deeper into it. So yeah, I think that was the majority of what I wanted to cover. So I appreciate y'all for listening, but I'll pass it back to you, Taylor, and see if you have any more comments before we open up to questions or any commentary from someone else. No, okay.
No, all beautifully stated and succinctly presented. And I fully support what you mentioned across the board. I mean, just such a pure energetic exchange, right? Like no expectation up front, knowing that the new students are going to be putting in the work, and knowing that on the back end, it's so mutually beneficial. And that really the natural law of reciprocity, you could say inevitably ends up fulfilling itself. So it full circle, just a beautiful experience, and grateful to be a part of it. Like truly, truly, truly humbling 10 days to say the least. And so transformative. I feel like, again, I think it's safe to say we are still kind of unpacking the healing, unpacking the epiphanies, and really just through the experiential wisdom that all of this entails. So yeah, just grateful for you, Justin. Thank you for having me today. This whole Telegram broadcast is a new experience for me, and just grateful to contribute where I can. So thank you.
Yeah, of course, brother. Appreciate having you here. And yeah, just this whole experience has been beautiful. So yeah, we'll open it up to questions. If anyone has any questions just about the experience or about anything that we covered today, anything on topic, now would be a great time to jump in and just to share what you got on your heart. And I haven't seen anyone raise their hands. So no worries if we don't have any questions. I'll take that as a good sign that we covered everything very well. But if anyone has any questions, I'll just pass it off and give a little pause and see if anyone wants to jump in. Hey, Tracy, go ahead, sister. Tracy, we're not hearing you if you're trying to speak.
Oh,
hey, there you go.
Sorry. Yeah, sorry about that. Okay. Hey there. Hello, Taylor. Really nice to meet you. Thank you so much for coming and sharing your experience here. You've spoken so beautifully. And I'm really, really touched by both of your stories. It sounds like if something we could all actually go and do it would just be so helpful in helping communities, just helping ourselves individually. Of course, it always starts there, but this sounds absolutely truly amazing. And your suggestions, Justin, that sound, I hope that they might even hear this and maybe, take you up on a little bit of what you suggested, because they're excellent suggestions. So anything to enhance that. Like you said, you've got a 10-day window. So anything to maximize any benefit that you can out of it. But your suggestions were excellent. So I wanted to say that. And yeah, it was I think, just sort of organically inspired me to sort of go into, sorry, Taylor, I'll just sort of explain. Just because we've got a group together, Justin maybe explain a little bit of this to you, I'm not sure, but we've all kind of been on this journey together for quite a long time, a few years now. So this break that Justin just took, we all, as a group, like there's a few different groups that are all kind of gathered together here, but there's a lot of different smaller groups to kind of, for different things that people are focusing on and stuff. So I myself, for having a kind of a break like this from all the lives that we have and sort of the daily interactions and stuff like that, getting a break from the technology, sort of, because there's a lot of purpose, sort of, well, there's a lot of purposes behind what we do on all these different channels on Telegram and stuff like that. So we're all sort of still in, if you will, study mode sometimes, there's our learning mode, teaching mode, sharing mode, and all that. So it's been really beautiful to have as a daily thing. But until you do step away, do you don't really see, right? You don't really see until you actually really do take a break. And we all kind of have. We've had different ups and downs. We've shared different personal experiences, some really hard stuff, some really beautiful stuff, so we've all have gained like a beautiful bonds together. It's truly like it's been a magical experience for pretty much for everyone. I think I can speak for everyone. We've all had like a really magical times in different ways. So anyway, just the way that you described being able to separate the reactions is something that I was actually focusing on, because I'd gone through a bunch of stuff recently. So before Justin took the break, I was in absolute reactive mode and I was freaking out. There's a bunch of factors involved, but in general, is that part of my nature? Yeah, it is. And so it is something that I had been looking at myself for a while. But the way that you guys have spoken on this was excellent, really, really excellent and very insightful. And, I definitely can take little bits of and still be refining myself, because that's what I sort of did. Was I took a break as well, just allowed myself to wanted to be in the moment. Just, even though I knew I had like a list of stuff, oh God, I got this to-do list. I've got this to-do list. I've got this to-do list. It's like this, it's like thing that I tortured myself with. I absolutely am only suffering because of the intention and the attachment to this fucking to-do list, and the things that I've got to get done on the to-do list. It's so important, oh my God. So stepping away and just observing is something that I've been trying. We've been consciously talked about as we've all shared stuff, and we've been reactive and we've been emotional, and there's been sort of dramas gone on within the group and stuff like that. So there's been like very reactive modes from a lot of us. But I can see how I could truly. I'm getting it. I'm getting what you're saying. I'm really grateful to have been here to listen and to witness. And yeah, what a challenge it would be, especially the physical part that you talked about. That would be really fucking hard, sitting like that. Because I was like, what? They can't lay down? What? I wonder if they can have naps. Like, were you allowed? That's a question I do have, is if you were in such a strained mode and you're like, I guess you're allowed to shift or whatever. Was that something that, okay, you're allowed to step away and go like lie down or something if you had an issue? Was that something you were allowed to do? And then another thing was it a communal type of shower situation where you kind of, or where you have your own rooms and privacy and things like that in the facilities and stuff like that? Because sometimes they really encourage more of a communal thing, but I guess they wouldn't, probably, maybe that's kind of a dumb question, because they probably wouldn't, because you wouldn't want to be like communal, naked and silent. I don't know. That'd be kind of weird. Maybe, I don't know. Maybe that'd be a good thing. I mean, that's something that, we do in the onsen in Japan, which I used to do all the time, communal onsens, but not co-ed, mind you, not co-ed, just female separated and males. But anyway, so yeah, that's one question I have. And just, yeah, loved hearing from both of you. And thank you so much.
I'll say one thing, and I'll pass it to you, Justin. Of course, I'll defer to you. But there are no dumb questions, and you articulated and expressed very beautifully. And thank you for seeing me. Thank you for seeing Justin. I'm learning that we all have our little micro communities, and I very much so respect and honor that Justin is a linchpin on this side of the fence here in Telegram land, and it's a beautiful thing to even have a taste of an experience of this community. And I'm honored with all of you, and really your presence, whether you speak or not. I just again want to verbally express my humility and my gratitude that your presence is the greatest present you can give to anyone, including yourself, but for me today. So thank you. And Justin, I'll let you touch on those greatly worded questions. Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, thanks, Taylor. And we are so happy to have you as a part of this family and part of this community. So it's an honor to have you here as well. And I'm sure others feel the same. Yeah, thank you, Tracy, for expressing that. And I would say that you came up in my meditation during that time as well, of just sending love your direction. So I'm glad that you felt this time was a great time to go within and to find that stillness and to reevaluate this reactionary mode. This is something that we can do all the time. We don't need a meditation practice to do it. This meditation practice is just simply a very effective way of reprogramming the mind from doing that. But certainly everyday practice, that's where we're put to the test. I could do this practice all day long, but if I'm still going into, reaction mode when somebody says something that pisses me off, then I'm not really learning much, and I'm just getting good at feeling the sensations in my body, but I'm not really taking it and putting it into the practicality of everyday life. Now, naturally, this just kind of happens when we do this meditation, but just wanted to mention that as well. So yeah, as far as the questions go, so part of the emphasis on strong determination was that for at least there were 3 1-hour sessions in the meditation hall. And they said, at least for these 3 1-hour sessions, to do your best to find that posture that you could sit with spine erect for that entire hour without shifting, without moving your hands, without opening your eyes, without shifting your legs. But as I mentioned, it's very flexible as far as what you needed to get into in order to be in that state. So as I mentioned, there were many people sitting in chairs, which I think is a great thing to employ if one has trouble sitting for a length of time. A chair can really help for that. I myself sat against the wall so that I had the support of the wall if I needed to have something to lean against. Taylor was a bit more hardcore, and he sat in the middle of the room. But everything was available to do that as far as you finding your way. But the point was to reach that state of absolute stillness and to stay in that state of strong determination for these 3 1-hour sessions. Now, the other times it was a bit more flexible. And of course, there's no mandate. If you have to move, you have to move. Goenkaji was very, very, very clear on not torturing oneself. We're not here to torture ourselves. We're not here to just sit through extreme pain just to go through this strong determination. But you might experience some discomfort, and these discomforts are layers to work through and to move through. And so to find the balance within that, so we're not overexerting, but also finding that balance. But yes, for those 3 1-hour sessions, there was no lying down for that time. You'd find that posture to be in, and you would stay for that time. And then the other times for meditating during the day were much more flexible as sitting in a different pose. And much of the meditation time was in our rooms. So if you're in your room, obviously you're in your bed, and you can lay down if you need to and go deeper into that. They did warn about laying down, though, is it usually, and I tested this many times, is that it would just encourage you to go to sleep. So, which is fine. Resting is not a bad thing. It's helpful to have that. And it sort of takes away from the dedicated time of persistence and diligently practicing this technique if we're just sleeping the day away. So it was encouraged not to lie down for more than a few minutes at a time, to rest the body for a moment and then come back into that seated posture so that we could regain and stay in that conscious, awake state of being. But yeah, so just everyone responsibly finds their own way within that to do the best they can with what they have. So that was that question. Oh, go ahead.
Just, one or two sentences. It's like, I thought it was really beautiful and like really respectful and sacred to, maintain the universal law of free will. I mean, like essentially everyone had free will to come and go as they please. And I say that like loosely, but seriously. Again, there's that one gentleman, not to name, I didn't know him, but who left, I think second, third day. And not to judge, but just like that right there, honestly, I think he sat next to me, right? And like that serves as a mirror for me, like check for me, like, okay, am I serious enough to sit through this, these periods of strong determination? And it's a really fine line, again, to just like not be overly, torturous, as Justin said, but like not be overly rigid either. It's that I talk about it a lot, going back into that beautiful balance between the divine masculine, the structure, the discipline, the time blocking, but also the divine feminine, and allowing for the flow, allowing for the creativity, allowing for the change up. And in a course like this, I know it's going to be a little bit tighter, but, like Justin alluded to, if you have a particular condition or past injury that may be flaring up, which was very common, like I think it's safe to say, like, I myself have broken both my wrists twice, and just like working through the literal pain of that. I know some other guys having like some like hip surgery, some knee issues, and just like observing that as well. They were very accommodating. And, so I say this because I don't want the rigidity and the like discipline, the masculine structure to turn anyone away, because there is always an excuse when you need one. But there is truly like the flexibility, or at least the honor and respect of free will throughout the entire process.
Yeah, well said. Thank you for that. And to your other question, Tracy, and I'm glad you asked, because this is something I didn't mention. So it is completely segregated between men and women, the entire course. The only time that we shared even the same room was in the meditation hall, but we sat on opposite sides of the room with an aisle between. So we ate separately. Our quarters were on completely different sides of campus. We had different walking trails on different sides. So there was very little even opportunity to see members of the other sex. So yes, the showers certainly were separate. No, there were no communal showers. The most communal it got was I shared, not all the rooms were structured like this. I shared a bathroom with another guy, but the way that they had this setup, where it's like the light switch flipped on and you knew that somebody was in the bathroom. So I never saw him in the bathroom. There was never a point where there was even crossing, because as soon as he would leave, he'd shut the light off and he'd be in his room. And that's when I knew I could go into the bathroom and have that. So that's as communal as it got. But no, most of the rooms, I think Taylor, your room had a bathroom to yourself. So a lot of people had that sort of individual experience. And that's what was encouraged, was to really find that solo state to where that's why there's no communication, no eye contact, because you're really supposed to do this as if you are doing this alone.
A couple things there, not to like, expand the duration of this particular topic, but I do know that like every facility is going to be a little bit different. Number one, they were also like sharing kind of expansion plans where they are doing room upgrades and, new suites and this and that. But Tracy, you're exactly right. Like traditionally speaking, it is more communal, and they showed pictures of like the original rooms where literally they were just like on the ground, like not even actual mattresses, just like kind of pallets, blankets, right? And their meditation pillows on the ground in a communal style, traditional, I guess, Indian-based style. And I will say what I did observe, yes, while each and every there were 3 different like men residential quarters that were divided into different rooms, and each quarter was a little bit different. And just what I observed is that they kind of segregated or separated or organized, each room or each of the 3 different buildings, you could say, by age. So the older gentlemen, which a good percentage of them were returning, or what they call old students, like literally, second, third timers. I believe that they did not have a bed, like they didn't have a raised platform bed like we had. They had a mattress on the ground, so a little closer to like literally earthing and the traditional sense of Vipassana. So they didn't have, honestly, as you could say, as nice of accommodations as, say, the new students. And then the younger students, which were on the other side of us, it, again, I didn't like go through there, but it did have more of a dorm type feel, meaning they did have like side-by-side beds in several of the rooms. So they did have actual roommates, and at least a portion of that residential building, there was kind of like a college style, high school style, like group communal shower. Now, I don't know the dividers. I don't know how that all works, not to get too detailed or technical here, but I can at least like respect that there was intention behind it across the board. Like not necessarily, talk about the differentiators, but just intention that returning students may have a little bit different of an experience, where new students, we give them, say the best accommodations. And then those who are younger, more, agile, you could say, more flexible, have, I don't want to say lesser accommodations, but just the more flexibility there. So I'll pause on that topic, but just wanted to give a little more color. So.
Yeah, thanks for that. Yeah, I wasn't aware of that other building. I saw it. It kind of looked like that, but I obviously didn't go into it, so I wasn't sure how that was set up. So yeah, Tracy, did you have any follow-up comments or questions on that?
I just wanted to say thanks. Yeah, thanks for the clarity on those things. And yeah, it sounds really interesting. That's an interesting point as well, that you guys were separated the whole time as well. So that's kind of important to know. And yeah, I spent my time as well looking at a bunch of the shorter clips on YouTube that some of the newer ones recently, past couple of months, I guess. But just going back into, I was really trying to be, like you said, implementing stuff day to day, all the different things we've been learning over the past couple of years. I know you have, very, very kindly reminded us. Yes, we do learn these things, but it's implementing it into your daily life is not always as easy as you think it's going to be. But I was trying to be conscious of that, the not just taking away time to meditate, but in my thoughts, in my thought processes. And just there's been there was for me, I feel a shift, not necessarily like a significant one, but I definitely feel a shift. So it was really a beautiful time. And during, the sort of the summertime, there's a certain feel in July, if you will. And this was sort of a month that I was really looking forward to, and being able to have the freedom of going to the beach and stuff like that, and doing my grounding and doing my sun gazing and stuff like that. And so, and I had recently had something happen where I kind of, anyway, so I was a little bit off my game, if you will. And so I was hoping to really just have the freedom in July, weather-wise and all those kind of things, that just you could be able to be out in nature as much as possible. But I used to always kind of panic about what time I was going to get there. Always this time thing, this freaking time thing. So I was consciously on that as well. Like, okay, let that go. Just, it didn't even matter when I was getting up or when I was going to bed, but I was trying to focus on just the sun cycles. So, and to stop always focusing on the clock. Because we had the luxury, so I use like the word luxury. I don't know why I use that word luxury. The luxury of Justin being gone for a couple of weeks, so there's no lives, because I'm in Hong Kong, so my time zone is completely different. So I have to be up usually at like 2 a.m. He would have his lives, and they'd be like 2 a.m. for me, 3 a.m., and they have been for years. So it was like a little bit of a break. I was like, oh, cool, this is good. This is good. I don't have to like over focus on the time thing, having to set the time, having to be up. So I was able to just let my cycle go with the sun cycle and with the weather cycle, and not get all hung up on, oh, I haven't gotten out by this time, or, oh, I only got out for this long, or, oh, I'm only going to have this long to get there. I was just like, just go fucking do it. I started riding my bike at night, going out at night, because it's really well lit around here. And it's a small area. It's away from busy streets and stuff like that. So it's very safe. But I was like the only one out there. It's like 11 o'clock at night. I even got scared because I thought there was a bunch of snakes in the drains. I could hear these crazy noises. So, but I just wanted to be out there at all these different times and just connecting. I was walking around in bare feet all over the place, all over the apartments, wherever I was going. I was walking around bare feet, and all the security people, they're looking at me. Are you okay? Your shoes? Where's your shoes? They were completely freaking out. They're literally freaking out. I was trying to lay out in the sun in the parking lot, in this one little protected area away from the elements. We're on kind of a little bit of a bluff here. It's very windy. And this beautiful, this older security lady, she's like the little Chinese mother. Okay, she's come over. Are you okay? I don't think you're safe over here. I think they're going to take your photos from over there. There's people walking over there. And she's saying this in broken English, of course. She's trying to point out to people walking by that are at least 100 yards away. they can take photos of you, because I'm laying there in a bathing suit, on a towel, on the cement. So nothing fancy. Didn't want to be down by the pool. Just like, I'm just going to go ground wherever I'm going to go ground. It didn't have to make a big production of it. And I also made a really intentional travel light, take less, just, stop the faffing around. I've got to have this, I've got to have that, or I'm not going to be able to feel this way when I'm there, or I'm not going to be able to do this when I'm there. So I was just consciously trying to let go of all this, like these control mechanisms that I've put in place that I'm so agitated by because I can't control them. Anyways, so it's been a beautiful couple of weeks, and I just wanted to share that. And I missed everybody because I did leave a little bit of message when you had also signed off, and I was like, yeah, I think I'm gonna be popping a little bit here and there, but don't worry about me. I might be a little bit quiet or whatever, but it's all good. So I love everybody. I missed you all. I really do. And it's really lovely. I hope to hear somebody else's voices. That would be awesome. So please, somebody speak up. Okay. All right. I love you. And thank you again, Taylor. You are such a beautiful soul. Again, it's really, really lovely to have you here, have your beautiful divine masculine and feminine energy here with us. Thank you. Thank you so much. Yeah, we love you. Thank you so much.
Oh my gosh, I so fully receive that. And on a human level, like I needed that, because this past week, these past 10 days, past 2 weeks have been like, God, and we'll get in more to my personal story as time progresses. But I fully received that, fully needed that, and just thank you so much. It's so important to honor the natural energetics of the body. And just like professional athletes, like, they're not playing they're not playing every single Sunday of the year, right? There's an off season, and that's so important to acknowledge the off season, honor the off season. Naturally, being in a community with other like-minded, like-souled, like-hearted individuals. I mean, you're going to be energetically synced to no matter where you're located, to like a similar on season, off season. And it's a beautiful thing to, in an indirect way, in a very different way, to have, and I'll say indirectly, have experienced Vipassana with you, right? Just to being in Vipassana, I truly deeply feel that, you in some way, shape, or form were present. And I know Justin verbalized that as well. Like he was consciously, intentionally sending you and each and every one of you love. And I'm just grateful to be a part of this at all. Like I said, grateful to taste the love in this community. And I believe each and every one of us, we do truly represent a slightly different flavor of love. And we bring a slightly different ingredient to the feast. And I'm just, again, I'm grateful. I'm so grateful for you, Tracy. Thank you for your kind words. Thank you.
Yeah, beautifully said, Taylor. And thanks, Tracy. Wonderful, wonderful, wonderful stuff. Yeah, so I'll just pass it off and see if anyone else wants to jump in. If not, no worries. We can certainly start to wrap up. But I wanted to give an opportunity to see if anyone else has any questions has any comments, things they want to share, all is welcome. So I'll just give a pause.
And yeah, I'll say one more thing. Like I'm new to Telegram, so I encourage all of you all to show me the ropes. I definitely interested in um, establishing more and sharing more of my presence in this space as well. So yeah, however we can connect through this app, I would love to do so. So thank you.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm sure there will be more ways to do that. I see we got Angela. Go ahead, Angela.
Hi, Justin. Taylor, hi, nice to meet you. Just what a beautiful story of your experience tonight. I'm really enjoying it. And Justin, if anybody, if there's anybody who would embark on this 10 days of solitude, I certainly know that it's your leadership that would actually initiate this and just bring this to light and encourage the rest of us to follow through with on whatever level we can. But I wanted to ask you guys, I mean, I know the Joshua Tree area. It's it has been known to have some really beautiful, peaceful energy there. Besides the sanctuary that you went to, did you guys feel in that regards about the peacefulness of that the Joshua Tree area?
Well, the area, the campus was the only area that I experienced in Joshua Tree, and it was certainly very magical there. So I don't know if I could distinguish between the rest of Joshua Tree, but I'd imagine so. It felt like a very sacred space, just to see this expansive nature, to see the Joshua trees growing and the other forms of vegetation and cactus and the flowers, and to see like an albino lizard scurry across the trail from one side to the other. And yeah, just to see all of it was quite magnificent, with mountains up in the distance. And as I mentioned, the sunrises and the sunsets were just absolutely glorious. So yeah, yes, the energy was very, very powerful in that space for sure.
Yeah, I would say I would, have to echo the same. I mean, definitely a sacred, vortex. And honestly, we lucked out, like, physically, like with the weather. Upon arrival, we were greeted with like beautiful, healing, purifying rain. And I think that right there kind of set the tone. And for July, which is supposed to be the hottest time in that region, I feel like that rain really kind of cooled it off. And that's relatively speaking. I mean, yes, I think during some of the days it would hit, 100, but obviously the nights were cool. Sunrise and sunsets were absolutely stunning. And over that 10-day period, it's safe to say there was a full moon, I believe, either on that first Friday or Saturday. Technically, I'm not sure when it hit because none of us had, phones to confirm it. But it was a beautiful experience, like all the way around. And I know Justin and I talked about this, on the drive. Like, yes, it would have been nice to like have more time on the front or back end to explore the region, the area of Joshua Tree, go a little bit deeper into the actual reservation or park. But honestly, our experience, I'll speak for myself, I'll speak for both of us, was very, very complete, and I'm just really grateful for all of it. Yeah.
Oh, that's beautiful. Thank you for sharing. Anyways, I just wanted to say, Taylor, welcome to the family. And of course, you said you're new to Telegram. Let all the experts know. I'm sure everyone will be willing to help you. So pleased to meet you here.
Thank you. Like most of my time is spent over in the Instagram land, and it is what it is. it's like I would say, give me a follow or this and that, so I don't even know how this works, but yeah, if you want to check out like more of my face and more of what comes through on Instagram, it is beyond.coincidence. So beyond coincidence is the name of what started off as a podcast, but I feel like it's kind of evolved beyond that. And I just, again, I'm grateful for the connection. I'm grateful for just the opportunity to have the exposure to different healing modalities and different perspectives and different backgrounds, and like I say, different flavors of love. I mean, this human experience, that we call life, it is meant to be more fun, and that's what Justin, has beautifully reminded me throughout this experience as well. Going through my own self-inflicted and co-created suffering, really the past 6 months, going through a separation. I've been going through some deep healing, and it goes beyond that, even like, ancestral trauma that I am working on transmuting for not only self, but for my family on really deep levels. And again, I'll share vulnerably even more moving forward, but I just want to upfront, always lead with gratitude, always close with gratitude, and just thank you so much for the love, for the connection, and for the reflection right back to me. So thank you.
Yeah, I appreciate that.
Hey,
go ahead.
Hey, Taylor. Sorry, Justin. Yeah, Taylor, like no pressure at all to come over here to Telegram, but like whenever you do want to, or whenever, yeah, please, you can contact anybody through the channel. You can send private messages, voice messages, whatever. Yeah, I've not been on Instagram myself, but yeah, I'll definitely come over there and check you out. I've not learned that platform. I'm a little slow to apps and stuff, but still, if I can learn Telegram, anybody can. But I'm not saying, I'm sure any app is learnable. But just yeah, anytime you want to come back on and share your stuff would be awesome. But yeah, no pressure or nothing like that. But we'll definitely come over and see you over there at Instagram, and yeah, being able to come and being able to speak like this live is just so it's really lovely. We always love doing it together. We have such an amazing group of people that whoever can show up at those times, and there's always a really beautiful core group of people. We try to do our best, but these are recorded, so Justin has an incredible library of over the past couple of years that he's been just working away at. It's pretty remarkable how extensive it is. But anyways, so yeah, anytime you want to come back, we look forward to it. So again, yeah, signing off again. All right, cheers.
Well, absolutely. I will definitely take you up on that offer. I feel like it's already a given. I do feel part of the family, so I do appreciate, again, the hospitality, in every way. And again, good people know good people, and I'm just grateful to be aligned with all of you. And while appreciating the differences, like really coming together, for oneness, for truth, for love, unconditional, right? And it's just, it's a beautiful thing. So truly, like, thank you. Thank you.
Yeah, and if we want to do some quick, if you want to try some quick Telegram settings on the fly, if you can get to your settings and set a username, that could actually be something that I could mention. So where people could message you from that. It's fairly easy to find in your settings. There's just a username field. If you set that, then that's something that I can share on the live if that's something you want to try and do right now. But we can certainly share later on next time you come back on too.
Yeah, either way, I'm working on 3% battery, so I'm trying to plug in my phone as you can see me in the video, scrambling for my charger. But yeah, I'm sure that I'm searchable by name regardless, right?
Not until you set a username. So here, I'm going to pause and see if anyone else wants to jump on. You plug your phone in, and I'm going to come show you how to set the username real quickly. So if anyone else wants to speak, just raise your hand, and we'll get to you in a second. So let me just pause my video, and I'll come set that for you.
Okay, who's gonna sing? Can anybody sing? because y'all know I can't really sing. So otherwise I would serenade you. Oh, just kidding, guys. I love you all.
Love you too, Tracy. Why don't you give it a try? Sing for us.
Perhaps we'll just keep the recording clean with the topic of conversation. And yeah, that was a terrible suggestion of me. Sorry.
Hey guys, thanks for your patience there. So we just got him set up with a username. If you want to message Taylor, it's at Tay, Tay _Chris. So at Tay _Chris is the username. You can reach out to Taylor if you'd like to message him. And yeah, I didn't see anyone else raise their hand, so I'll take that as a good sign that we covered all that we needed to today. Taylor, I didn't know if you wanted to if you had anything else come up on your mind, you wanted to have any closing comments before we wrap up?
No, again, I just appreciate the love, the respect, the reciprocity across the board. Thank you all for holding space for me. Thank you all for receiving. Even for those of you who did not speak, I mean, thank you for, whether you realize it or not, energetically giving. And again, I'm grateful for your presence. I'm grateful to, you could say, to reconnect with each and every one of you here in the physical. And yeah, I'm grateful to serve, grateful to, learn and contribute where I can. So thank you so much love. Thank you.
Yeah, thanks, brother. Appreciate you for being here, and yeah, just for sharing this experience and sharing about it with me. And thank you all for being here and listening and participating. And yeah, so I hope everyone has a absolutely wonderful rest of your day wherever you are. And as I mentioned, if you want to find more about the Vipassana meditations, just go to Dhamma.org, DHAMMA.org, and you can find where the locations are and how to sign up. I'd strongly encourage it. It was a life-changing experience, a very beautiful experience. But if anything, just recognize the practice of finding the aspects of self that are in that robotic reactionary state and moving back into the conscious response. So out of the egoic reaction and into the conscious response. That's how we step out of slavery and into freedom, into sovereignty. So this is the path to liberation. So I love you all so very much. I hope you have a wonderful time. And until next time, guys, take care.